Okay, good morning. So for today's lesson, we will be discussing about the theory and practice, about the concept of theory and practice, and of course the origin of theory, of the word theory, and lastly, we will be differentiating the theory and practice. Okay, so what is the origin of theory? So theory came from the Greek word theoria, which means viewing, thinking, or reflecting. So, theoria daw, ibig sabihin, viewing, thinking, or reflecting. So, as we go along, mapag-aaralan natin kung ano nga ba ang ibig sabihin nitong theoria na to. So, let's go. So, theory is a statement that explains the relationship between abstract concepts in a meaningful way. Okay, so, ang theoria daw ay explanation of the abstract concept. So, for example, we have a concept, for example, yung concept ng photosynthesis. Okay, so in photosynthesis, perhaps na tatanong natin on why do plants and trees grow upward and not downward, di ba? Ang mga plants and trees ay tinatanim natin sa lupa. So, bakit sila pataas nag-grow? Okay, it's because of the idea or the concept of photosynthesis that plants and trees needs sunlight in order for them to grow. Okay, so sunlight is above them. Okay, nasa taas yung sunlight. That is why sinusundan nila yung sun. Hindi pababa. Okay, kahit na itinanim natin sila sa lupa, kung nasaan yung sun, yan yung susundin nila. That is why they are growing upward. Okay, so the idea that the plants and the trees are growing upward because of the sun is what we call a theory. Okay, that is an example of theory. Next one. Practice. Practice refers to the actual observation, operation, or experiment. So, kung sa theory, nagkaroon lang tayo ng concept on why do plants grow upward is because of the sunlight. In practice, it is already the reality. Okay? So, the reality na gagawin na natin siya. For example, nagtanim tayo ng plant. And then, after some days, after a week or two, yung plants or yung trees na itinanim natin, nag-grow siya pataas. And why? Because of the sun. And we observed it personally. And that moment, yung na-observe natin, yung moment na nag-grow sila upward is what we call the practice. Okay, so practice is the actual observation or the actual operation on something. Okay, na hindi lang concept kundi actual. Okay, so according to Dr. Albert Einstein, in theory and practice are the same. But in practice and theory are not the same. Okay, so sabi ni Dr. Albert Einstein sa Tagalog, sa theory daw, pareho ang theory at practice. But when it comes to practice, may pagkakaiba na sila. So let's give an example. So for example, marami tayong theory about breakups. Okay. So sa mga theory about breakup, so kapag nakipaghiwalay ka raw sa asawa mo o kaya sa boyfriend, girlfriend mo, sabi sa theory, matatagalan kang mag-move on. But in practice, some men and women, yung iba sa kanila natatagalan mag-move on. Pero yung iba, nakaka-move on agad-agad. So that is the difference between theory and practice. Nasa theory, parehong natatagalan mag-move on ang babae at lalaki. Okay, mapababae man o lalaki. But in practice, hindi sila pare-pareho on how they handle their breakups, on how long they handle their breakups. Okay, so that is the difference. I hope you did understand well, and we will be discussing about the theory development on our next module. Thank you for listening. Good morning. So our topic for today is all about development of theory. So in this lesson, we will be discussing about the stages of theory development and of course the three kinds of reasoning. So let's start with speculative. So when we say speculative, it is the stage of theory development wherein the person attempt to explain what is happening. So in this speculative stage, you may think how things could have differently, such as if I just woke up early, I wouldn't have missed my long quiz. So sabi dito, sa speculative, the person is attempting to explain what will happen kung ginawa niya yung hindi niya ginawa a while ago. So for example, in this example, sabi niya, if I just woke up early, I wouldn't have missed my long quiz. So kung gumising lang daw siya ng maaga, dapat hindi niya na-miss yung long quiz niya. Nag-a-attempt siyang i-explain kung ano ba dapat yung pwedeng mangyari kung gumising lang siya ng maaga. Okay, let's proceed with descriptive. So when we say is descriptive, it gathers descriptive data to describe what is really happening. So in this stage of theory development, the person making a research is now gathering data. Okay, hindi niya lang ine-explain kung ano ba yung pwedeng mangyari. Dito, nag-gather siya ng data, nag-gather siya ng other resources in order for him or her to relate the topic, to relate the materials in order to explain a phenomenon or yung pinag-aaralan niya. Okay, next. Constructive. So in this constructive, the person making a research or making a theory is not just gathering data at hindi na lang niya ine-explain kung ano yung dapat na mangyari. In constructive, the person developing a theory is not just gathering data but also amending and improving an existing theory. So, kukuha siya ng data and then of course pag-aaralan niya, and then kung may nakita siyang pagbabago or may nakita siyang dapat na i-update doon sa existing theory na yun, i-amend niya yung theory na yun and i-improve niya yung theory na yun based on continuing research. Okay, good morning. So this is part of the theory development lesson. So in this video, we will be discussing about the three kinds of reasoning. Okay, so the three kinds of reasoning are the inductive, the deductive, and abductive reasoning. So in the inductive reasoning, it is a process of using examples and observations to reach a conclusion. So in inductive reasoning, yung unang ginagamit natin is the observation. An observation to a specific data, and based on that specific data, we will reach a conclusion. So, yung conclusion na tinatawag sa inductive reasoning is called conjecture. So, let us cite an example. For example, in inductive reasoning, every quiz has been easy. Okay, so yung mga quiz daw na pinapatik ni teacher ay madadali lang. Tapos yung conclusion na nagawa based on that specific data ay therefore the test will be easy. So, from the very specific data, nagkaroon tayo ng conclusion na magiging madali lang din yung exam ni teacher kasi easy lang or madali lang din yung mga quizzes niya. Okay, so based on that conclusion, based on our specific data, it is not enough for us to conclude na dapat maging madali lang yung quiz ni teacher. Na magiging madali lang yung quiz ni teacher. Okay, so next, deductive reasoning. So, eto naman, kabaliktaran po siya ni inductive reasoning. When we say deductive reasoning, it is the act of backing up a generalized statement with a specific scenario. So, in deductive reasoning, mag-start po tayo sa theory. Okay, so based from the theory or based from a given concept, magkakaroon po tayo ng ihihimay-himay po natin into a specific data. So, example, dito sa deductive reasoning, madalas ginagamit ang word na all. Okay, so for example, all students in this class play guitar. So, lahat daw ng estudyante sa klase ay nagpe-play or tumutugtog gamit ang gitara. Therefore, Sam is a student of this Sam is a student of this class. Okay, so that is the second statement. The first statement is all students in this class play guitar. The second statement is Sam is a student of this class. And the conclusion or the derived specific data from that general statement is that therefore Sam plays guitar. Okay? So itatagalog ko lang. Lahat daw ng estudyante sa klase ay nagigitara. Tapos si Sam daw po ay parte ng klaseng yun. Therefore, si Sam daw po ay marunong din mag-gitara. Okay? So, from general to specific data, siya si deductive reasoning. So, let us go naman with the abductive. So, in the abductive reasoning, it is also known as retroductive reasoning. It means making a probable conclusion from what you know. So, unlike kay inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning, si abductive reasoning po, nagkakaroon lang po tayo ng probable, okay, ng maaaring conclusion na pwede or maaaring nangyari based on our observation. So, for example, you observe na yung mga plants sa labas ng bahay nyo ay basa. So, you conclude na, umulan pala kagabi. Pero maaaring hindi siya umulan, pwedeng diniligan lang pala siya ng nanay mo. Okay? But you already conclude na umulan siya based on you, umulan siya. Pero maaaring hindi, maaaring oo. So, sa abductive reasoning, hindi tayo sure kung ano yung totoong nangyari, but we conclude based on what we know. So, that is the 3 kinds of reasoning, and thank you for listening again.
Okay, good day warriors. I hope naririnig niyo ako ng malinaw. And I'm Member Verlin G. Dinas. I will be discuss the fundamental of school of thought in explaining the cause. Okay. At the end of this module, you should be able to explain the concept of 3 school of thought and discuss the explanations of crime in each of the pioneers of school of thought. Our first school is the classical school, and it was founded by Cesar Marquez Vicaria Bonisana. When we say classical school, ang classical school daw ay nakafocus on crime. Bakit? Fundamental equality of all people, which mean that every person should be treated equally under the law. Dito sa classical school, sinasabi dito na Nakapokus siya sa crime. Bakit? Kasi si classical school, wala siyang pakailam kung sino ang nakakommit ng crime. Child man yan, insane, or lunatic. As long as ang isang tao nakakommit ng crime ay dapat siyang parusahan. Bakit? Kasi sabi sa classical school, ang mga tao daw is may free will. Ano ba yung free will? It is the ability of a person to choose between the good and evil, or between the good and right. Ibig sabihin, kapag ang isang tao pinili niya na mag-commit ng crime, dapat siyang parusahan. Okay. Aside from Cesar Beccaria, meron pang isang personality sa may classical. Ito si Jeremy Bentham. Si Jeremy Bentham naman is English philosopher. Meron siyang sinasabing hedonism. Ano na may hedonism? Who seek pleasures and avoid pain. Ibig sabihin ng hedonism, ang mga tao daw ay gusto lang ng pleasure, pero ayaw nila ng pain or ng punishment. And Jeremy Bentham also invented the panopticon prison design. Ano yon? When we say design kasi, ibig sabihin, yung prison na to is never na-establish or never natayo. Kasi, masyado siyang complicated. Kaya, tinawag siya na panopticon prison design. And walang krimen nula pwede sinigahe. Ano ibig sabihin? There is no crime if there is no law punishing it. Ibig sabihin, walang crime na matatawag kung walang batas na nagawa. For example, hindi matatawag na crime ang pagnanakaw kung walang batas na pinagbabawal na magnakaw. Okay. Okay, our second school is neoclassical school, or tinatawag, when we say neo, it's new. Bakit? Kasi si neoclassical school, kinontradict niya si classical. Ibig sabihin, dapat daw, nakafocus ka din sa other factors or some factors. Ano ba yun? Yung mga factors na yan is child, insane, and lunatic. Ibig sabihin daw, kapag daw ang isang tao ang nakakommit ng crime ay child, insane, and lunatic, dapat exempted sila sa punishment. Kasi itong mga tao na to is walang free will na tinatawag sa classical. Ibig sabihin, ang mga child, insane, and lunatic, wala silang free will. Wala silang ability to choose between the right and wrong. Kaya dapat exempted sila sa punishment. The neoclassical school, ang fundamental niya is let the children and lunatic criminals be exempted from the punishment. Okay, dito naman tayo sa third school natin, yung positivist school, or tinatawag din natin siyang Italian school. Saan naman siya nakafocus? Nakafocus siya on criminal. Why? Kasi yung dito sa Italian and positivist school, na-develop siya in 19th century. Attempt to explain the scientific method to study of criminal. Sa positivist school, meron tayong tatlong tinatawag na holy three. Sino-sino ba yung mga yan? Si Cesar Lombroso, si Rafael Garofalo, and Enrico Ferri. This school based the study of criminal behavior on scientific determinism, which explained that every act had a cause. Okay, first personality natin sa Holy Tree is si Cesar Lombroso. Naka-focus siya sa biological. And also, Cesar Lombroso ay is also a father of modern criminology. He studied the remains of executing individuals who had been convicted of crime. Meron siyang tatlong types of criminal according to Lombroso. At first, atavistic. At least 5 district of F will consider as atavistic or born criminal. Ano ba yung F na yan? For example, bago mo daw matawag na atavistic ang isang tao, dapat meron siyang 5 katangian na galing sa F. Ano ba yan? For example, tamo ang ilong, malaki ang bibig, malaki ang tenga, or malaki ang noo, or malaki ang ulo. And Second criminal is insane criminal, result of alterations the brain. Ibig sabihin, merong hindi tama sa pagtakbo ng brain ng isang tao. For example, alcoholism. Di ba pag ang isang tao is laseng, ibig sabihin, hindi siya makapag-isip ng tama or ng maayos. And another, the klepto. When we say klepto naman, ito yung mga tao na unconscious sila na kahit wala silang motive na magnakaw, is magnanakaw at magnanakaw sila. That's psychological problem. Sakit siya. And the third criminal according to Lombroso is the criminaloid or habitual criminal or criminal by passions. Okay, a second personality from positivist school is Enrico Ferri. Nakapokus naman siya sa social positivist. Ano ibig sabihin nun? That argued that criminals should not be held morally responsible for their crime because they did not choose to commit crime, rather were driven to commit crime due to economic. Sinasabi ni Enrico Ferri dito na ang isang tao daw dapat hindi tawaging criminal kapag nakakommit siya ng crime. Bakit? Kasi yung criminal na yun is hindi niya gusto na mag-commit ng crime. Kumbaga, meron lang mga factors bakit niya nagawa yan. For example, economic. Maaaring nakapagnakaw lang siya dahil mahirap siya. Or political factors. And social factors. The purpose of criminal justice was to afford the maximum protections or defense of society against the criminal. Our third personality sa positivist school is Rafael Garofalo. Nakafocus naman siya sa psychological. Bakit? Raise the root of criminal behavior which is not physical but their psychological equivalent. Ibig sabihin, nakaka-commit lang daw ng crime ang isang tao kasi meron siyang psychological problem. Okay. And let's proceed to the perspective of crime causations. First, the classical perspective. Viewed crime as a product of situational forces, that crime is a function of free will and personal choice. Ibig sabihin dito, yung crime daw is functions ng free will. Again, when we say free will, it is the ability of a person to choose between the right and wrong. For example, kung ang isang tao ay pinili niya mag-commit ng crime, ibig sabihin, he have free will. Yung pag-commit niya ng crime is a personal choice. And under the classical perspective, meron tayong tinatawag na three principle of punishment according to the trademark of Becarius. First principle, swift. When we say swift, mabilis. Punishment must be swift to be effective. Dapat daw ang punishment is mabilis siyang i-effect. Bakit? Kasi maaaring yung isang tao na nakakommit ng crime, kapag hindi mo siya pinarusahan agad, anong pwedeng mangyari? Pwede siyang makatakas. And second principle is certain, sabi dyan, that no one may take a substitute for the punishment of the one who violate the law. Ano ibig sabihin? Ibig sabihin, kung sino daw ang nakakommit ng crime, siya ang dapat parusahan. Walang pwedeng pumalit sa kanya. For example, si Pedro, nakapagnakaw siya. Siya dapat ang parusahan, hindi si San Pedro. Okay? And our third principle of punishment is severe. Must be severe enough to outweigh the reward of the illegal action's severity. For example, dito daw sa severe, kung gaano kabigat ang nagawa niyang krimen, dapat ganun din kabigat ang punishment na ipapataw sa kanya. Example natin dyan is a tooth for a tooth and eye for an eye, or eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth. Kung ang nagawa niyang krimen is murder, dapat ganun din kabigat ang punishment na ipapataw sa kanya. Again, meron tayong three principle of punishment na tinatawag. The swift, certain, and severe. Our second perspective is biological. Ano naman yan? Crime as the product of internal forces. Ibig sabihin when we mean internal forces, Sa tao mismo nanggaling yung problema. Bakit siya nakagawa ng krimen? The focus of the study is mainly on the individual persons itself. For example, yung isang tao, meron siyang kleptomania. It is a persistent neurotic impulse to steal, especially without economic motive. Ibig sabihin, merong problema sa biological perspective niya na maaaring yung pagkakaroon niya ng klepto is namana niya sa mga magulang niya, genetic or heredity. When we say again, kleptomania, ito yung mga taong gustong-gusto na magnakaw pero without motive of stealing. Okay, our third perspective is the process perspective. Ano naman to? Crime is a product of socializations or interactions of one person's to other. Ibig sabihin, yung crime daw is a product of socializations. Maaaring yung isang tao, nagkaroon siya ng criminal behavior dahil sa mga nakakasalamuhan niya. For example, si Pedro. Si Pedro is meron siyang mga kaibigan. Kaibigan na gang member. Ngayon, sa kasasama niya sa mga kaibigan niya, nahikayat or na-impluensyahan siya na magkaroon din ng criminal behavior. Crime is a product of socialization, pakikisalamuha sa ibang tao. Okay, our fourth perspective is the conflict. Sinasabi dito sa conflict perspective that cause of crime is based on economic and political forces. Crime is a function of competitions for limited resources and power. For example, pagkakaroon ng conflict between the poor and the rich. Ibig sabihin, yung poor, dahil wala siyang pera, maaaring magkaroon siya ng criminal behavior or criminal tendency na magnakaw siya kasi kulang siya sa pera. Limited resources. Pag merong limited resources ang mga tao, dito nag-i-start ang criminality. Okay, our fifth perspective is biosocial. Explain the onset of antisocial behavior such as the aggressions and violence by focusing on the physical qualities of the offender. Example natin dito is, if an individual had birth complications and grew up in a disruptive home, the individual would be more likely to have criminal tendency. Bakit? Kasi dito sa biosocial perspective, pinagsama dito yung biological and sociological. When we say biological, ito yung sa tao mismo ang may problema. And when we say sociological, ito yung sa may problema sa environment. For example, kung yung isang bata, pinanganak siya na merong problema sa pag-iisip niya or sa pag-iisip niya at the same time, nakatira siya sa disruptive home. When we say disruptive home, magulo na paligid or magulo sa bahay nila. Now, dahil may birth complications siya at the same time, tumira siya sa magulong environment, doon nagkakaroon ng criminal tendency ang isang tao. Bakit? Kasi hindi siya naturuan ng tama at the same time, kung ano yung mga nakikita niya, nagagaya niya. And our sixth perspective is psychological. Criminal behavior was the product of unconscious forces operating with a person's of mind. When we say unconscious, you are unaware. Ibig sabihin, hindi mo alam yung mga nangyayari sa paligid mo. Kaya ka nakakakamit ng crime. For example, yung mga bata, hindi pa nagde-develop yung psychological perspective nila. Hindi nila alam yung tama at mali. Unconscious sila. Ngayon, nagagaya nila. For example, nakikita nila araw-araw yung mga magulang nila na nagmumurahan or nagsasakitan yung nanay at tatay nila. Yung mga bata, unconscious sila na mali pala yung nangyayari sa paligid nila. Anong nangyayari sa kanila? Maaaring magaya nila in the future kasi unconscious sila na mali pala yun kasi alam nila tama yun. Okay. Classical theories. Crime causations hold the primary that the people's decisions to commit crime is a matter of choice. Sinasabi dyan, again, paulit-ulit tayo dito sa classical theories. Ang isang tao daw ay nag-commit ng crime kasi personal choice niya yun. Or ibig sabihin, ginusto niya yun at pinagdesisyon niya na gawin yun. Kasi, again, sa classical theories, sinasabi dito na ang tao daw is merong free will to choose their behavior. Okay. Under the classical theory, meron tayong tinatawag na rational choice theory. Kung yung classical theories is old concept, etong rational choice theory is parang modern concept siya ng classical theories. Bakit? Hold that person will engage in criminal behavior after weighing the consequence and benefit of their actions. Ibig sabihin, yung isang tao daw, bago sila ma-engage sa criminal behavior, tinimbang muna nila yung consequence at benefit na makukuha nila. For example, sa isang bangko, kapag nag-rob ka ng bangko, nagnakaw ka sa bangko, meron kang 10 million na makukuha. Di ba napakalaki na yan? Pero, nalaman mo, sa pagkuha mo ng 10 million is 1 year imprisonment lang yung magiging punishment mo. Ngayon, tinimbang mo yung bigat ng punishment at sa laki ng benefit na makukuha mo sa action mo. That's the rational choice theory. Now, second theory, ito yung routine activity theory or tinatawag din siyang lifestyle theory. Dito sa routine activity theory, ito naman yung ine-explain dito bakit ang isang tao is nagiging biktima. This theory is for understanding the criminal victimizations and overhunting patterns in late 20s. Ibig sabihin, dito sa routine activity theory, pag-uusapan natin dito bakit ang isang tao is nagiging biktima ng isang krimen. Dahil sa lifestyle niya or sa nakagawian niyang ginagawa, sa pang-araw-araw niyang ginagawa. Meron tayong tatlong elements sa routine activity theory. First, the motivated offender. When we say motivated offender, ito yung mga possible criminal natin. Sila yung mga gagawa ng crime. Sino-sino ba yung mga yan? Mga addict, unemployed, mga gang member, mga tambay. And first element is suitable target. Sino naman to? When we say suitable target, ito naman yung mga possible victim natin. Yung mga magiging biktima ng mga motivated offenders. Sino-sino yung mga yun? Mga mayayaman, mga babae, children, unlocked home, or yung tinatawag din natin mga, pwede din yung mga oldest natin, yung matatanda. When we say suitable target, ito yung parang sila yung mga taong walang kakayahan para ipagtanggol yung sarili nila. And our third element is absence of capable guardians. Or yung mga, when we say absence, walang capable guardians. But first, ano ba yung mga capable guardian natin? Yung mga homeowner, mga CCTV camera, and mga law enforcement. Now, let's apply these three elements sa crime. For example, si Tanggol, tambay siya. Ngayon, siya yung tinatawag nating motivated offender. Unemployed siya at addict siya. Nalaman niya na si Ivana is call center agent na ang routine is usually 12 a.m. na ng madaling araw umuwi. Ngayon, si Ivana laging dumadaan sa kanto nila Tanggol. Tong si Tanggol, nalaman niya na routine na ni Ivana na dumaan doon tuwing alas 12 ng madaling araw. Kasi, yun yung oras ng pag-uwi niya. Ngayon, tong si Tanggol, nagkaroon ng idea. Why not abangan ko si Ivana sa pag-uwi niya? Ngayon, dahil dun sa kantong dinadaanan ni Ivana is walang CCTV camera, madilim at walang mga law enforcement na naka-duty. Nagkaroon ng chances si Tanggol na gawan ng gawan ng crime si Ivana. Yun yung tinatawag nating routine activity theory. Dahil sa mga lifestyle mo, kaya ka nabibiktima. Sana naiintindihan? Okay. And general and specific deterrence theory. But first, ano ba ibig sabihin ng deterrence? When we say deterrent, you are preventing someone na gawin yung gusto niyang gagawin. Ngayon, meron tayong dalawang klase ng deterrence. The general deterrence and the specific deterrence. When we say that general deterrence, ito yung applicable sa lahat. Kaya general, pang lahat. For example, yung punishment is din applicable sa lahat. Dinedeter niya yung lahat. For example, sa isang community, sa isang barangay. Sabi sa isang barangay, bawal magtapon ng basura sa gilid ng sapa. Ngayon, sa kaukulang punishment, kapag sino daw yung mga nagtapon is merong multa na 500. Ngayon, yung multa na 500 is tinatawag natin siyang general deterrence. Bakit? Sa pagkakaroon ng multa, nape-prevent niya yung mga tao na magtapon ng basura sa gilid ng kalsada. That's general deterrence. Kumbaga, yung punishment is para sa panglahat. Ang pagpapataw ng punishment or kaukulang multa is para ma-deter or ma-prevent yung mga tao sa community na magtapon ng basura. Now, ano naman yung specific deterrence? Curious. When we say specific deterrence naman, ito naman is applicable lang siya sa isa. For example, si Tanggol, nakapagnakaw siya. Dahil nakapagnakaw siya, pinarusahan siya. Ngayon, bakit siya pinarusahan? Kasi para hindi niya na ulitin. Yun yung specific deterrence. Pinaparusahan ang isang taong nakagawa ng criminal para hindi niya na ulitin yung illegal act na ginawa niya. That's specific deterrence. Pine-prevent mo yung isang tao na ulitin yung criminal act na ginawa niya. Okay? Sana naiintindihan? Okay. Next is the victim precipitation theory. Ano naman yung victim precipitation theory? It's viewed that some people may actually initiate the confrontations that eventually leads their injury or death. Ibig sabihin, kaya daw nabibiktima ang isang tao is dahil sa kagagawa nila. Ibig sabihin, pre-nabook or nauna sila, kaya sila ginawan ng criminal ng isang tao. Again, dito sa victim precipitations, meron tayong dalawang uri ng precipitations. First, the active precipitations occurs when victim act provocatively. Ibig sabihin, dito, yung isang tao, kaya siya nabiktima kasi siya yung nag-provoke sa isang tao para gawin siya. For example, si Tanggol at si Pedro, magkaibigan sila, nag-aasaran sila. Ayun, si Tanggol, bigla niyang sinuntok si Pedro nang wala namang dahilan. Ibig sabihin, yung pagsuntok niya kay Pedro is nag-provoke. Nauna siya, nag-initiate siya para mag-away sila. Ngayon, ang nangyari, si Pedro is mas malakas kay Tanggol. Ngayon, ang naging resulta is mas nabugbog si Tanggol. Ngayon, naging biktima si Tanggol kasi mas malakas si Pedro. Pero, yun yung tinatawag na active precipitations. Ikaw yung nag-provoke, pero ikaw din yung naging biktima. Ibig sabihin, ikaw yung may kagagawan. Bakit ka naging biktima? Nag-provoke ka, nag-initiate ka sa isang tao para gawan ka ng criminal act. Okay, a second precipitations is passive precipitations. Occurs when the victim exhibits some personal characteristics. When we say exhibit, nagpapakita ka ng personal characteristics. Example natin dito is si B daw na merong tato sa buong katawan niya. Ngayon, yung pagkakaroon ng tato ni B is nagkakaroon ng threat sa ibang tao. Ano iniisip nila? Na si B daw mayroong tato. Ngayon, iniisip ng ibang tao, ano siya? Maaaring mayabang siya, kriminal siya, kasi aside from pagkakaroon ng tato, lasing din si B. Ngayon, iniisip ng ibang tao, delikado siya. Ngayon, anong ginawa ng mga tao na yun? Inunahan na si B, inattack siya. Ibig sabihin, sa pagkakaroon niya ng tato at pagiging lasing niya, nagpakita siya ng personal characteristic na baka delikado siya. Ngayon, ang ginawa ng mga tao is inunahan siya. Sana yung inatake. Para kasi yung pagkakaroon ng personal characteristic niya is yun yung nag-initiate sa mga tao para gawan siya ng criminal act or illegal act. Okay. Incapacitation theory. Incapacitation theory stands to reason that if more criminals are sent to prisons, the crime rate should be go down. When we say incapacitation theory, ang other term kasi ng incapacitation theory is punishment. Ibig sabihin, or imprisonment. Kasi, sinasabi dito sa theory na to, kapag daw ang mga tao or ang mga criminal ay idinadala sa prison, anong mangyayari? Maaaring yung crime rate daw is bumaba. This theory supported the idea of imprisonment of criminals. Okay? Thank you. Sana marami kayong naintindihan or marami kayong natutunan. Good luck to your exam. Good luck, warriors. Thank you.